Right. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you're joining from. On behalf of the SSGSA team, I welcome you all to this important webinar on contacting the professors for PhD positions. Do the homework right. So one of the most common questions that we receive on the SSGSA portal as well as on our email is that like I'm looking for PhD positions and I'm writing emails to professors, but I'm not getting a response. So with this webinar, we are trying to help the RSSGSA scholars as well as AMU students in general on how your email to the professor should look like, what are the do's and don'ts, and what is the homework that you need to do, like looking up the website, reading the previous papers. And for that, we have one of the faculty members from a top US university, Professor Bushra Sabri here, who would be delivering this webinar. She is an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins University. As a PhD student, I know how difficult it is to get a faculty position in the US. And then top of that, to continuously writing grants to keep that job. And on top of that, to receive the awards for the research work done. So Professor Sabri has ticked all those boxes, and we are very privileged to have her here speaking for this webinar. And like many of us, Professor Sabri was a student in AMU at some point in time. She did her BSc in home science from Women's College, then did a master's in social work from the Department of Sociology in AMU. She then moved on to Iowa State University for a second master's in social work and did a PhD from Iowa State University itself. Then she had a brief stint as a postdoctoral fellow at Johns Hopkins, and now she is an assistant professor at Johns Hopkins. So I hope that this webinar will be useful for you in terms of bettering the emails that you write for a prospective PhD positions. And with that, I invite Dr. Sabri to deliver the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Salman, for the introduction, and thanks to all of you. Glad to be with all of you today. I'll be can you hear me well? Okay.
Yes, sure. Please go ahead.
I'll be discussing the topic of contacting the professors for PhD positions. But before I discuss today's topic of contacting the professors or doing homework, I would like to provide a brief overview of some necessary steps to take before reaching out. And so in this presentation, I will cover some necessary steps, such as the need for developing a research statement, thinking about which PhD program you're looking for, or which university would be a good fit, who could be a potential mentor, what are the admission requirements of the university, and the need to contact the admissions department. And then comes the step of contacting professors or faculty members that you would like to work with. I'll be talking about some do's and don'ts and some points to note as a summary. So first, it's important to develop your research statement or plan. It could be 2 to 3 paragraphs or 1 or 2 pages, depending upon your field. First, be clear about what research you would like to do, outline your short-term and long-term goals. Develop a short document that provides a brief overview of your past research-related experiences, if you have any, the current state of your research, and the future work that you intend to complete. So this information is critical to determine whether you will be a fit for a program or the institution, or the program or the institution will be a fit for you. So it will help you prepare, think through that this is what I would like to do and whether the program is a fit for me. And it will also help the program to see if you are a fit. So in terms of research statement, and this is something like I always tell people, like when I get, oh, I want to do a PhD, I was like, okay, what would you like to do? And students are not clear about that. So this is the very first step that, that's needed. So in this research statement, And then not just for the purposes of the faculty, it's also important for your own, like, to think through, for your own thinking, that you have a clear-cut research idea in mind, and then you start doing the, the groundwork for that. So in this research statement, you will need to introduce your research area of interest, why it is important, or why there is a need for research in the area, and how your proposed PhD research that builds on previous research in the area will fill the gap in the field. And the way you write should demonstrate self-motivation and passion about your proposed research. Also show interest in the degree program you would like to apply, and why and how do you think it's a fit for you. And you would also cover your qualifications, your skills that will help you succeed in the graduate program. And if you have some experiences, you could write about your past research related experiences. Include some examples if you can that show your success. Don't just say, you can tie those examples back to your skills. Be concrete and concise. You don't have to write like long stories, but just like 1-2 single space pages is enough. Then in the end, you could write a concluding sentence or two, referring back to your interest in the program and how the admission to the university can support you in your journey. And it's best to tailor these statements or paragraphs you would develop to each university or program you are applying for. So once you are clear about what research you would like to do and have prepared a running draft of your research statement, you would need to check out the university's websites and programs and see what programs are offered in different universities. Look for a PhD program that you're really interested in, and also find a program that's a good fit to your needs. So do not apply to a wrong program. And it's better to apply to a reputable program that's compatible with your professional goals and could get you a job when you graduate. You could also consider how long the program is, whether it matches with what your career and professional goals are. You could look into available resources for students in the program, like if there are funding and scholarship for international students. I believe that there aren't many programs that offer international students funding or scholarships, but outside of regular research or teaching assistantships for PhD students, I mean, some students who join the PhD program, they are like research assistants or work in the lab, and that's what support their PhD. And if possible, talk to other graduate students if you know someone who graduated from that program, if you have a connection. It's great if you can find out, what the completion rates of the program are. Do students drop out? I've heard students, some students face challenge. They come from India and they drop out and they go back. And so it's and also professional success, like, how many, like, they're graduating from the program and getting jobs. So once you find a program, you would need to check admission requirements and specific requirements for international students. Contact the admissions office in case you have questions. Make sure to avoid any mistakes in the application, because that gives a very bad impression. Have strong letters of recommendation. And use your research statement when you are applying to demonstrate your research background and skills. And make sure that there are potential advisors or mentors that could support you in your professional goals. So why should you be contacting the professors? It's because it gets you on their radar. Many PhD programs get hundreds of applicants. You might get some useful information. And I did, when I was applying, I did reach out to, a couple faculty. I reached out to the PhD program director. I talked about my research interest. So is helpful. You might get some useful information, and faculty members are often involved in the interview process. Like I am, we in our school we interview PhD candidates, and there are so many applicants, and some are selected for the interview. And how should you contact is email is the most feasible and professional method. Prepare an email that is convincing enough for them to give you their time and attention, and create a good impression by being presentable so that you stand out as a serious candidate. And sell or market yourself as a great candidate. You are in a sense trying to advertise yourself a little bit in the initial email to a faculty member. You could say something about what sparked your interest in doing research to give a more personalized touch and give them a reason to believe your interest is genuine. Just don't go overboard or, with writing or writing too much. Just be genuine. Show that you're genuine. You're not just you're trying to please them, but basically like in a professional way. It is important that it is important that before you contact professors, do your homework. Go to the university website and find faculty members who could be potential mentors or advisors for your work. Read their profile on the university website or their website if they have one. To look at their research focus, what are their current research interests. And if you can, you could look at the abstracts of publications, and professors will be impressed by the time you've taken to investigate their work, and then identify a professor. You can see like how his or her research is matching, and you can plan to email the professor. You don't have to read if some faculty members have hundreds of articles, but maybe you can see what currently they're working on, and if you can, if possible, look at some of the abstracts. So when you are emailing them, have a clear subject line, such as, I'm a potential applicant for the PhD program, or inquiry from a prospective graduate student. And it's important to address the person you are emailing appropriately, instead of just saying, hi, hello, just say, dear professor. Instead of using dear professor, it's better to address by their last names, like dear Dr. Smith, or, something like that. If you use a bit casual words like dear professor, this may come across that you are sending mass email messages to different people and haven't thought about who would be the appropriate faculty member for your work. And make sure that you're not misspelling the name of the faculty. And try to make a connection. If you have a connection that is known to the professor, and somebody told you that you could contact him, make sure to mention it in your email. That if, for example, if you're referred to them by one of their former students, you could say, or current student, you can say about that. And if you heard the professor speak at a conference or visited AMU or something, you could just mention something like that. Be to the point. Don't write a super long email in one paragraph, because people are busy. They won't read like a whole, break email into small paragraphs so that it's easier to read. And email should be relatively short, so that's faster to read and reply. But make sure that it still covers key information to get the interest. So what you would cover is, you would briefly introduce yourself in 3-4 sentences, your name, why you are emailing them, your research interests, and how your interest or prior work aligns with the professor's work. If possible, you could attach your CV or resume. Basically, the idea is to show that you've done some homework and You could mention in the email that here's please find attached my resume. If you are unsure about how to write a resume, you could get some professional help at the university. Format your resume to show your experiences and skills related to research, because for PhD positions, it will be good. And even like when you are going out in the job market, usually you tailor the resume to the position and highlight the experiences in the resume that are fit to the position you're applying for. In the same way, for PhD positions, you want to highlight your research experiences if you have any, or so it's important to tailor that. And when writing an email in a sentence or two, you could start with mentioning something like your name, your year in the degree program, and what you are currently doing, or if the degree is completed, what you have. So keep it simple, like my name is this, and I'm a graduate student of AMU in doing the MSc in this or something. Then talk about the research interest. And if you link your interest with their work, this provides some good evidence that you at least look them up. Like you can say something like, I was looking at your website and found the idea behind your ongoing project very interesting. You don't need to be specific about every single thing. You can just show them that basically the idea is that you're showing them that you have a genuine interest in what they do and how their work aligns with yours. So basically the bulk of the email should cover what you are interested in, working as a PhD student, your background in the field. If you don't have any research experience, you can rephrase it as the motivation to grow and learn that you want to, so think about what you've done that could show that you're a strong candidate. Why should they pick you? You could mention something like that, regardless of your lack of research experience, your deep motivation to grow and learn would make you a dedicated and hardworking student. I get some students who come to me, oh, I don't have any experience, but I'm a good learner. I can, do this. If you're not contacting for a PhD or contacting them for internship or some other reason, show how you can contribute to their work by expanding their research directions. And if contacting for PhD position, you could also mention that, whether you're looking for a fall position or the spring position, or when are you planning to join? What kind of what is your timeline? And then ask them any other information or advice they could offer in the conclusion for the PhD application process, or if it would be possible for them to comment on the feasibility of your proposed idea. And some applications require names of professors, like our program here at Johns Hopkins. So, and I could tell one example is somebody reached out to me from another country, and she said, she's interested in my research, even though I saw that her work wasn't completely aligned, but she said, oh, was it okay to mention my name in the application? So you could ask the same way, if that you would identify the professor, you could ask, okay, to mention his, her, and her name, and that you would like to work with the professor if you're accepted in the program. And end the email by thanking them for their time. It's very important. Thanking is a polite way to show respect and say something that you looking forward to hearing from them. Like I've had students from AMU or other places, they would email me for information and then no thank you when I provide the information. No thanks. So it's just always a good practice, because the professor took the time to respond to you. So send an email, thank you email back, even if it doesn't fit with what you would like to do, or if the professor doesn't have, anything that you don't plan to apply, or if the response is not something that you were looking for, still it's a good idea to say thank you. And if you're looking for a remote meeting with them, make it easy to set up a meeting. It's helpful to close your email by listing the specific days and times that you're available. So it just reduces the number of email exchanges and it makes it easier. Also, if you have a meeting arranged, do not just send the time. When you're proposing time, just don't send the India time zone. It's a good practice to add both time zones, US as well as India. So that's easy for the professor that, okay, it's the Eastern time zone. And this will be the time that, our meeting will be here. So it's easy. So it's very important in terms of to review your email before sending out. And in the email, it's important to keep a professional tone. Am I addressing the professor properly? Is the closing appropriate? Ask someone to look it over if you can, because you're writing for the first time and describing, or maybe save it as a draft and come back to it later. Sometimes you can be surprised at the small mistakes you may have made. And it's better to be too formal than too informal. Like I said earlier, like, hey, hi is not okay. If you're writing someone for the first time, you can say, dear doctor's, last name, and better be too polite than not polite enough. So it is, your email shouldn't come across that you're just like not polite enough, or it's coming across as rude, or the way you write should make it as easy as possible for them to give you guidance. And like I said earlier, always send a thank you email for the response back, even if the response is not what you were expecting. And don't send generic emails. Always personalize the emails. So that initial email should be uniquely developed for the person you're writing to. So you may be reaching out to more than one professor in your effort to get into the program. If there are many faculty members performing research in your field of interest, you could do that. I mean, if you want to write to multiple people, but don't make it look like, and sometimes faculty members, if you're writing to too many people, and they may know if it's from the same department, people know each other. But also don't make it look like you're just, cutting, pasting, so if you are like, for example, people say that if you are like writing an email, you can just change the name of the addressee in your salutation and keep the body of the message same. Then it's kind of a problem, because it's important to personalize an email a bit, even if your main content is the same. Like, try to see like if you can tweak the email. And don't neglect proofreading. Make sure there are no typos in the email, and show your attention to details and that you're organized. Grammatical errors in the email do not make a good first impression, because that's why sometimes people don't respond, because they think, oh, or like you misspelled the name and you're making grammatical errors. Don't give up. Like, if you don't receive a reply from the professor within a week, it's okay to send a gentle follow-up email asking for a response. Like, hey, if you still don't get a response, it might be best to move on. But usually people are busy, and sometimes you can always and it shows interest. Like, after a week, you don't need to like keep following up every single day, but you can give them some time to respond, a week's time, and then politely like ask, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I'm writing, following up on my email below. I'm not sure if you received it or you missed it or something like that, because it is possible they missed reading it. And but if you still are not getting response, best to move on. And don't neglect following up on what you said you would be doing. For example, if you tell a professor that you will be sending your CV or resume tomorrow, or just make sure you do. If you're giving a timeline to someone, I always do that, and sometimes people don't do. Like, if I say that I'm going to write to you tomorrow, I will write tomorrow. And if I can't write tomorrow, I will say to the person, even like now, I would say that I need some more time, or I couldn't write today, or I will. So always follow up on what you commit to do. And if you know the professor through personal connections, make sure you approach them professionally. Because I have heard students like not sending a WhatsApp message or say, some students would like who would know me, like they would just send WhatsApp message, I'm looking for, this information, and do you have something, without any detailed information about your background and future goals, what you would like to do. And some of them may have sent a CV like a while ago, and so if contacting them after a long time, for example, do not expect them to remember your name, your email, your resume, or details about you. So always, like whenever you are like reconnecting with someone, always send a reminder email with the CV or resume. So this I covered like before, points to note, some of the things that we discussed before contacting professors or sending emails. Develop a statement, get feedback on research statement, email feedback on your email draft and your resume or CV, and follow all things we just talked about regarding admissions, websites, and searches, etc. And don't be afraid to send the initial email, when you start applying for the program. It can lead to a conversation that helps you get accepted, or if not accepted, you could get some advice. Some faculty members are responsive, others are not. Example, they could say another faculty could be a better fit. You might consider reaching out to her or something like that. And sometimes in some universities, you reach out to the PhD program director, and it's every university is different. So see like what the program says, what the guidelines say, who to reach out to if you're not directly reaching out to for more information about the program. And remember, professors are extremely busy and receive a ton of emails each day. And many faculty will simply not reply, but they may be able to read your email and or may forget that you ever sent it after seeing it for the first time. It happens to me, and I've seen like a lot of colleagues that they come back, and sometimes it's not an immediate response, that it takes time because you're getting so many emails in your inboxes and you're pulled in so many different directions because faculty members are doing multiple different things. They're teaching, they're doing research. So don't be afraid to send a follow-up email. You may not get again receive a reply or get a positive response, but you may get it. You never know. Don't be afraid to ask professors who turned you down if they can refer you to another faculty member. And don't make it look like that you are harassing them, because sometimes, you have to have a balance, when you're following up. The thing is that sometimes it can come across really bad with some people, and professors, remember, professors cannot admit your application for a program, and this decision is usually made by the admissions committee in every university. The professors can merely say that this candidate looks really good and it can increase your chances, but it's a decision made by multiple people. And like, for example, in our department, we interview like 3 people interview one candidate, and there are 3 scores, and depending on the content area, and then it's just like an admissions committee that reviews the review the applicant. And do not expect faculty members to remember or know all the details of the admissions requirements, because they may not know unless they are directly involved in admissions process. When I tell people like, okay, I don't know, I mean, you might want to look up, online to see what the admission requirements are, I get like, it's like it comes as a shock, but it's because in India, some places in India, people are, there's some PhD program unstructured, that you just reach out to the faculty member, they would know. But technical questions are typically, it's good to reach out to the admissions office. So that's what I have today. Thank you for listening. have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Sabri, for the nice, useful slides. And I think before we move forward, I would like the audience to please ask any questions if they have. So please unmute yourself, and then you're free to ask the questions directly to the speaker. Or if you want, you can also type in the chat box.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Sabri, for these wonderful insights about contacting professors. Yeah, they are very useful. I believe in getting admissions into a US or a European universities. I mean, I still recall my advisor in US forwarding me some emails all the time, and telling that, oh, I won't talk to this student because his English is not good. If you want, you can talk to him. Or I mean, last week he sent me an email where he was mentioning that, oh, this email is not personalized. What do you think? Is it like, is this guy sending this email to 10 professors? So yeah, Dr. Sabri focuses on like very wonderful points about uh, uh, how to approach professors in a greater way. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Sabri, and thank to TSA team for organizing such a wonderful talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sachin Bhai, for a vote of thanks. And I would also like to thank the participants for attending the event. And of course, just follow us for the next events, and follow our websites on social media on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to be sure that you don't miss any events from us. And with that, we come to an end of the webinar. And thank you everyone for joining again. See you in the next event.